All right, welcome to Cup of Linux Live, and today we're having a special report. Happy Veterans Day, everyone. Brian, what was that thing you said about Veterans Day?
Yeah, if you're American or British and you can read, thank a teacher. If you can read it in English, thank a veteran.
Thank a veteran. You got it. All right, good stuff indeed. I've got a great cast with us today, and we're going to be hitting three of the hot topics that's been hitting the community here. First, I've got Edge 226. Get on the Edge. There's a link on the front page, cupoflinux.com. You can see all the things that he's been doing with GitHub. We have Nikki Wolf. And Nikki works for an undisclosed cable company, has some points of views that he wants to share with us. Okay, we also have Shaggy 2Dope with us. We've got Brian Tidwell. He is my lead moderator here at cupoflinux.com. And last but certainly not least, we have Biff Brainerd with us. And let's talk about all the big things in the news. One of the things that shocked me this morning was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. GNOME open source project is fighting this evil company called Groupon over the GNOME trademark. Now, everybody knows that GNOME has been around since 1997. They've been around for a long time. As a matter of fact, when I was first introduced to Linux, you know, it came with the GNOME desktop and it came with Red Hat Linux. And then of course, I've tried other Linux distributions over the years before, you know, finally transitioning over. I've tried SUSE, I've tried Mandrake, and a number of other ones, and all of them included this GNOME desktop, the GNU Network Object Model Environment. It's an acronym for GNOME. And now we have Groupon, who is a proprietary software company, who wants to name their point-of-sale operating system GNOME. And I looked at their page, and interestingly enough, when I went on their page, they wanted me to sign up just to look at the content. They had that little pop-up asking me to sign up if I wanted to look at the page. You know, they have a special place in hell for people who do that stuff, you know. But I want to get you guys' opinions on this before we talk about Groupon backing off a little bit. So we'll start with you, Edward. What do you think about all of this? Because obviously they're asking for funds and that sort of thing, and you mentioned something pre-show about that.
Well, I don't really, like, there's the Free Software Foundation, there's a lot of different foundations that are there to support open source. So people have already put into those foundations, and I don't necessarily agree with people putting in twice and asking for solicitations for this, because there's already funds that cover this.
Okay, but it is a non-profit organization. Maybe they don't have those funds available, because remember, we have people cooperating throughout the community, you know, submitting code and that sort of thing, and they're devoting their free time into this. And sure, I'm sure the GNOME project must have some backing up, because obviously it's the main desktop for Red Hat Enterprise Linux. SUSE also has GNOME desktop. Debian offers it as well. And so when we get all these communities together, I'm sure there's got to be a way for them. But this also gives people a chance to give. I use Xform's Common Environment, or XFCE, as my desktop. And to be honest with you, I still felt compelled to, you know, kick $5 in the can, figuring that if everybody kicks $5 in the little tin for these guys, you know, they'll have more than enough money to combat this problem, should it arise. And the thing is, even though Groupon is saying that they're backing off of this, I don't believe.
Well, hey, Spatrick, there's I think the GNOME project is probably sitting pretty good. There's ample precedent for this sort of thing. Those of you who, I admit it, my secret shame is I'm a wrestling fan. And a few years ago, World Wrestling Entertainment was known as the World Wrestling Federation. And they had to change their corporate name. They had to change their logo because of trademark infringement with World Wildlife Fund. So I think GNOME project is probably in pretty good shape with this.
How about you, Shaggy? What you got on that?
There's a lot of folks from the FSF and other places that are always geared up to fight against this. This is not the first time, as you said, but it does help set a precedence to other companies to stop violating trademarks or stealing from projects like this and violating rules that's set forth by everyone else.
Well, it stands to reason also that now if the GNOME project and this company, Groupon, doesn't come to some level of agreement or consensus, then GNOME would be obligated to fight them in court over their trademark. Otherwise, Groupon could attack GNOME.
Well, that's the thing about trademarks is if you don't actively fight to protect them, you lose them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Biff, what you got?
You have to defend a trademark. You have to defend a brand.
Well, just the irony. The thing that kind of jumped out at me is that that Groupon actually kind of considers itself a company fueled by open source software. That they do participate in on GitHub. A lot of portions of how their site works is open source. So it's sad that they participate in these things. They widely use the software as runs their site, but then they miss the point of that with all these trademarks and these that they're easy going about sharing these things, but they're not supposed to be walking all over the developers and the people that work on these things by showing such rapid disregard and try to take over something that's one of the oldest. That's one of the oldest trademarks associated with Linux that I personally know of.
Okay, before I call Ranch Glass time, I'd like to see what Nikki Wolf has to say on this.
Thank you, Sbattery. GNOME was my first desktop environment I ever used so many years ago. Actually, it was running Red Hat as I ran into it. And I think that they should... I have no idea why they're trying to pick on them just so they can get the trademark off of the symbolism for what we all regard as GNOME. It doesn't make any sense that they're stepping all over them to do this. I wish it was just that.
Time for Brian's patented ranch glasses.
Ranch shades.
The ranch shades. This company is saying that they're embracing open source and everything, and then in an article I'm reading some BS that they didn't even know about the GNOME desktop yet.
Are you kidding?
Open source software? Come on! If it looks like caca, smells like caca, it must be caca. Now apparently they're going to be out of this, but you know what I think these idiots are doing? They're just trying to buy some time, fill some lawyers' pockets and everything, and pay off judges and that sort of thing, and try and ostracize this trademark out from the Free Software Foundation. And the thing is, we need to send a message to these people that our free and open source projects will be protected from this kind of corporate tyranny. Brian.
Well, the last thing you want to do is rile up a bunch of Free Software Foundation members. You get Richard Stallman on your case, you're going to have a bad time. And, yeah.
Well, I think Linus Torvalds should step up to the plate and give the same message to this company that he gave to NVIDIA. What do you think about that?
Absolutely.
I say go for it.
And I know there's been a lot of, and there continues to be a lot of daylight between Linus Torvalds and Richard Stallman, but this is one thing that I think those two could definitely come together on.
Yeah, all right, Edge, what do you think about that?
I actually agree on that. Like, everyone kind of has to stick together when it comes to free software and open source software, and we have to protect what's there. When I think of GNOME, I don't even think of the garden gnomes anymore. I think of the software, and that's all there is to it. And a simple search engine parameter would have told them, hey, this is already trademarked. It's called due diligence. Companies have to do that.
And not only that, but it's more than just a desktop. You've got the GTK toolkits and all of the applications that function with it. You know, and basically it's performing a similar function to what this point of sale has. And the thing is, there are point of sale applications available for the GNOME desktop, as far as I understand. Let's go ahead and pass the mic over to you, Biff.
Yeah, I don't know what more I could add to that. This is a company that they've been participating. They have a GitHub. They participate in the open source community. So to say that you're participating, or to say that you're part of the that you are fueled by open source, and then to pretend that they don't know about GNOME, that's ridiculous.
Absolutely. What you think about that, Nikki?
I think I stand with Biff on this one. How do you utilize open source and not know about GNOME? GNOME is like, yeah, GNOME was one of pretty much the first one, the godfathers of, the open source community. Desktop environment that came with some of the first programs I had ever seen. How do they not know? Why are they playing this game?
Beats me. Shaggy, you got any thoughts on that?
It amazes me that simple Google doesn't give you, GNOME or some sort of open source reference to some GNOME project. The Debian project leader, Lucas Nussbaum or whatever, he said it really elegantly. It's not about protecting GNOME's trademark at this stage. It's really about asserting that open source software trademarks can and will be protected.
Absolutely.
It's not just about GNOME. It's about the small guys who don't have a legal fund or the means to raise funds to protect themselves if a company decide to come along and do this. It has to be asserted, and there has to be a precedent. This is how most things in the United States work. There has to be legal precedent set for it to be enforced down the road easier.
And like I said earlier, that precedent already exists. The World Wildlife Fund, a nonprofit organization, back in the early 2000s, caused now known as WWE, but caused the World Wrestling Federation to back off and change their branding and change their trademarks. And WWF had used that, or the World Wrestling Federation had used that for years, but they still had to back off of it, and the courts, gave the trademark, awarded the trademark rights to the World Wildlife Fund. So nonprofits can stand up and they can win. It has been done, and I think the GNOME project is in good legally. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I did sleep in a Holiday Inn Express once. But I think they're probably in pretty good shape on this.
Do you think they're doing it for another reason? Do you think they're doing it for publicity?
And that's something that was discussed earlier as well, that this could just be a publicity stunt so that Groupon can get free advertising for their product.
Or conversely, though, this brings attention to open source software. This is a good publicity for the other side too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're going to lose. Not the GNOME project, but the other guys are going to lose. GNOME is too powerful. Not to say they're like a powerful entity, but they are an entity nonetheless.
Yeah, they stuck their foot in the mouth on this one. All right, but let's go ahead and move on. We spent enough time on this particular topic. President Obama, this has been the latest buzz on YouTube. President Obama released announcement on YouTube, and I was going to try and cue it up here, but you guys can easily find it on YouTube. Most of you have probably already seen the video. We've got links to it on cupoflinux.com. But President Obama has declared that he is in favor of protecting net neutrality. 4 million people have written to the FCC and said No, we don't want cable company to control how we consume our data, and he has urged the FCC to declare the internet as a oh, what was that? It's on the,
Open and free platform.
well, not
Class
only
2.
Mm.
yeah, a class two. So basically, it would
Common
make it a
carrier.
utility. It would be a utility company. Okay, and so and it appears after this, the GOP, your elected officials, the Republicans are calling this the Obamacare of the internet. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Um, because the thing is, they're using this statement to trick and mislead people into thinking, or tricking and misleading people into giving up their internet freedoms and letting the cable company take control. And I think it's a bunch of BS. We'll start with you, Beth.
Yeah, well, I think his statement at this point is probably about as relevant as when he first ran. He originally ran on net neutrality, and then we see who he put in charge of the FCC and how that went. So I think he's basically, this is a publicity stunt to get him back, to get people to win a little bit of favor back his way, and basically play on the unpopularity of contacting, and then play on the unpopularity of Obamacare and try to win himself some brownie points on this end, because I think it's all basically one entity working together. But being that he was at the forefront of attacking net neutrality, I'm not real impressed by a single statement where now he says he's going to work in favor of net neutrality.
So are you saying that there's two things you don't like about our president? His face?
Well, I do. I don't. What stops me from complaining is I don't complain about any one president because I don't want to sound like I'm supporting another. I think I maintain neutrality as far as I think the decision makers are operating on a whole different level than what we see on the Talking Head TV. But I would still look into this and be very skeptical. I saw one of the statements that about when net neutrality was first starting to come into the public psyche. Remember John Stewart, who had always been a big liberal for the people, about freedom and all that. He actually made some aggressive statements against net neutrality before it was known. He made some comment about how we don't need the same bandwidth to go to some popular site as we need to listen to MongolianThroatMusic.com. There was some statement to that effect, basically mocking it. So I'm cynical about that.
Well, this is what's going to happen. If the cable company has control over the bandwidth you consume, say goodbye to Netflix. They want this measure in place because, as many of you may or may not be aware, cable cutting has become a major trend for a number of American households. Okay? You've got people that, they're just sick of what's on television. They'd much rather just open an account on Netflix and stream their entertainment, or Hulu, or any of these other providers that are out there, and enjoy a commercial-free experience on their favorite television programs and shows. And the cable companies want to put a stop to this. Go ahead.
Let me chime in for a moment, Spatry. Obviously, you know who I am. Recently, there was a large meeting within my organization, and they actually stated that I think it was almost 50% of the internet users in the location I'm at uses 30+% of that to go to Netflix. And the rest of that, whatever the percentage is left over, 17, whatever, goes to YouTube. Now, why is that? Of course, to reiterate, freedom from commercial. Didn't Dish or DirecTV get in trouble for comp skipping, which is another way of saying commercial skipping? They just are getting tired of looking at just commercials. They want to be able to see, this is the future of cable television or the internet itself. We're all heading towards it right now at full-blown steam. They just want to be able to stream everything now.
Well, the thing is,
where it's going.
I think Great Britain has it the right way. Okay, their shows, they don't have interruptions in their shows. They don't. They play the commercials in between the shows, but they do charge a tariff on their citizens for television. You know, they pay a tax for that. So they're not being inundated with advertising because the average American show has a 1 hour show has a runtime of 42 minutes, and the rest of it is all commercials. And for some people, it seems like it's actually longer. You know, they're thinking that they're only watching a half-hour show and then a half-hour commercials.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's ridiculous how they're inundating people with advertising. And I have another wrench to throw in this, but I want to give everybody a chance to chime in. So we'll get to you next. We'll get to you next, Shaggy.
It's amazing that it's even an issue. The government, the FCC has no place in controlling what people do if they elect to have it done freely. It's an example of what HBO is allowed to show. They're allowed to show whatever they want. There's very little censorship to it, but they want to censor what's on the internet.
But think of how this
they want to censor even how you get the content. Mm-hmm. It's wrong. It's wrong. The FCC is not an elected body.
No, it's an agency. That's all it is. It's not even under the government. You know.
And what's to say that this can't be abused? Because, look, Microsoft has billions of dollars. They consider Linux to be a threat. They could pay Comcast, and we got to stop Comcast from getting Time Warner because Comcast is almost everywhere in the United States now as it is.
There's not enough transparency in what the FCC does and can do. There's not enough at all. There's no.
So Microsoft.
I'm not a fan of Big Brother and big government, but there should be governmental oversight over something like the FCC with as much power as they have.
But the point I'm trying to illustrate here is, you know, if these net neutrality laws are passed, what's to stop Microsoft from approaching Comcast saying, hey, we want you to limit the amount of traffic that Linux website, free and open source websites can get, because they consider free and open source software to be a cancer. So it goes beyond just, you know, limiting how much data you consume on YouTube or on Netflix. It goes beyond the scope of that, you know. And as the president was saying in his video, you know, if we keep the internet the way it is now, everybody is on an equal ground where they can compete and innovate. Okay, they take that away from us. Now only the people with money can get their message across. And if you think advertising and crap is bad now, wait till they pass those laws, and let's hope that we put a stop to that. Edge, what you got?
Honestly, I think if it does happen to go through, we will just, as intelligent users, find entirely new ways of doing things that we didn't do before, using new technology to bypass such things, and the internet may change completely. It may not be something that you go into your browser and you type a website anymore. You may have to sync the sites that you want or something like that. And with that, unless the ISPs are censoring all traffic, it's not going to work, because yes, that first download might be slow, but once that website's on their network, is Comcast going to limit other Comcast customers between communication of Comcast? Most likely not. So there are ways around it.
One trick is using VPNs, and it wouldn't surprise me if what were to happen is, so let's say they decide, okay, we're going to slow down, you know, Netflix. Netflix could then offer an application that the user could download and install in their system that will establish a VPN-like connection that is completely encrypted, that the cable company can't see, so that they can't slow them down. You know, they're going to come out with ways to get around this, but they shouldn't have to do this in the first place. Brian? Brian, and then Nikki.
Okay.
I agree that something has to be done to prevent internet service providers from abusing the power that they currently have. I don't know if Title II reclassification is actually the right tool to do it. Much like Shaggy said, the FCC is an unelected body, and for them to just draft the rules or whatever, I have a problem with that. Now, I know there's been some noises made about Congress stepping in, and I would welcome Congress stepping in if the way that Congress, whatever regulations, laws, whatever Congress comes up with to protect net neutrality, as long as that's an open, transparent process, and most of the time it kind of sort of is because they have hearings and everything else. But the sad part about it is if you look at, and I'm going to put my ranch shades on. If you look at the two biggest ISPs in the country right now, they are Comcast and Time Warner. Comcast and Time Warner are looking at getting together in a marriage made in hell for the consumers. Okay, now look at now their argument is, well, we don't actually compete anyway, so it's not really a monopoly. But the thing is, maybe that's on the ISP service delivery side, but they've got a whole other side. Both of those companies have a whole other side of their business where they're also content creators. So, a third of the channels that you have in your basic cable package are ultimately go back to and are owned by Comcast. Another third of the channels that you typically have in your typical TV basic cable are owned by freaking Time Warner. So, okay, now they're going to own all of the entertainment content, at least in the United States, and they're going to own all the pipes for delivering all of that content, be it over just traditional cable or over cable internet. Holy crap, Batman, does anybody else see the problem with that?
Now, let me throw another wrench into this because it ties into exactly what you were saying. I watched a news report, a snippet earlier today, okay, and one of these people that opposes to keeping the net neutral is saying that all these cable companies are losing stock. Well, there's a reason why your frickin' company's losing stock, you idiots. It's because you're giving poor service to your customers. You don't listen to what your customers want. You provide substandard service, improve the service, put some competition in the market, and start charging reasonable prices for these services, because as soon as this crap passes, they combine all of these cable companies into one big monopoly. Your prices are going to go up. You're having faulty internet connections, or you're having poor service. They're not even going to bother to come and fix them. They don't have to, because there's nobody else you can call. It's ridiculous. I think these companies need to be broken apart into smaller companies. We've got to say no to monopolies in America. Back to you, Nikki.
What's going to happen? Anybody have a general question of what's going to happen? I actually have an insight as to what possibly will happen. The day that Big Brothers combine, let's call them that, Big Brothers combine, people like the average Joe is not going to know this, because obviously they don't really follow this. The people that do follow this are like ourselves here, because we're always dealing with it. What's going to happen is they're going to call, they're going to complain, why can't anything like Max TV or Netflix or Hulu, Amazon Prime, they are going to be slowed down. And they are the biggest threat to the cable company right now. They are actually the biggest threat. But what happens is when they slow it down, they throttle it down on purpose because it's too much content watching. They're not watching enough of their show. That's going to be a big problem. Call centers are going to be flooded. The cable companies are not going to give a damn. They're not going to care. They know it's substandard parts and pieces. They know this. They're not going to care. They're just going to sit back and quietly laugh, saying, we're finally gaining control again. They're going to use our content that they have to pay for. So in other words, if you want to watch HBO, guess what? HBO is fine, but you can watch it online because we have HBO Go. Cinemax, Max Go. Showtime's available online. As long as you provide that you're part of a cable company, you can watch all these great shows. You know,
Yeah, but what about people like me? I rarely even watch television. I prefer to stream everything off the internet. If it wasn't for the one or two TV channels that Mom enjoys watching here, I would have already convinced her, hey, let's go ahead and
then you're going to have to circumvent the internet the way that most people have agreed upon. As Shaggy has said, everybody else has said, you're going to have to go through a VPN, backdoor all the way around, or allow those websites to create apps in synchronicity and log in directly to their site, and they can backdoor it all the way through.
Absolutely.
That's probably what's going to happen. And that's going to take a little bit more money, a little bit more effort. The way Netflix is sitting, Amazon Prime, Hulu are sitting on it right now, is they don't have to do too much work as long as the internet provides it. But what happens is the day that we start throttling back and you want to watch that wonderful 1080 high definition The Avengers movie, as an example, in 1080, I can't see it. I'm slowing down. What's going on? Why is it buffering? They're going to think it's something to do with us, the cable company. It's not going to be anything to do with us. It's actually going to be, well, actually, it is going to be something to do with us, but it's not Netflix itself or Hulu or whoever.
Now, the thing is, another tactic cable companies are coming up with, and I'm sure you've seen this before. Look at the pricing plans on the internet if it's bundled with a television broadcasting. But the internet by itself is ridiculously expensive. It's $5 cheaper. And, you're only saving $5 on your bill by not having TV. That's insane?
It is. It is. It saves. It's the way that they've structured it is the more you add on, the more you save, instead of kind of what they call a la carte. If you do an a la carte and pick and choose what you want, and not use one of their specified bundles, you end up paying out to wazoo for just this.
What's amazing? It's amazing that they think we're stupid, though. With the 1080p television show or whatever it broadcasts, it uses a lot of bandwidth. It's no different from your internet connection. They think we're stupid. That's the funniest part of this.
One thing I throw out there is another thing to keep in mind is to be intelligent about what ISPs are available in your area. Because where I'm at, I have no problem streaming 1080p Netflix on a 5 megabit connection from a local provider, whereas I have family across town who's unable to stream 1080p content at all on Netflix. It all comes up as standard definition. They can't turn it up to the higher resolution. I'm paying about a third of what they are for a connection that's 1/10. I have a 5, they have a 50, and I'm still able to have a stream Netflix, high definition Netflix, better than them. So it's very important to be really. The more they price gouge, the more it opens an opportunity for smaller ISPs to come in, and a quick search of what's available in your area could reveal something much better than whatever you're using.
Verizon doesn't seem like a bad idea to a lot of the customers I've talked to. In most cases, they want to, versus the cable company, even though Verizon is not a cable company, it's a fiber optic company, it's very different. They would choose them over the barrel, but even with their contractual agreements, they would still choose them because they know that the services, it's not the greatest customer service they get, but you know what? At least the equipment works. And what cable companies like to do is they like to create patch jobs.
Exactly. Okay, well, we've spent enough time on this topic. We need to move on to our... and the show's running a little bit longer than I thought it would, but hey, lots of good stuff going on here. Another thing that's been buzzing around on cupoflinux.com is Rockstar Games. The game in question just got an update, and that was Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Now, Apparently, now this is for people who are consuming bandwidth from Steam, downloading your games and that sort of thing, and that's another thing the cable companies could slow down, because games are very huge in file size. We're talking several gigs for some of these games, you know. Well, Rockstar Games just pushed an update, and this particular update strips 17 songs from the game, and they didn't even notify any of the users about this. Now, I can understand if the licensing on the music ran out, you know, that they could have at least replaced the songs with something else rather than just entirely stripping them from the game. And we've had some discussions on this in the Cup of Linux chat room, as well as on Mumble and that sort of thing. And I think the general consensus right now, we're all in agreement that really this isn't so much Steam's fault, because, you know, Steam is just distributing. They're just a game seller and distributor. But the thing is, I think Steam should penalize game companies for doing stuff like this without notifying their users. You know, they should have offered something, an alternative. You know, if they had to strip some really good music from the game, that they couldn't just throw in some alternative songs rather than just stripping updates on this. I'd like to get you guys' opinions on this and see where we go from there. We'll start off with you, Biff.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind with anything where you have both a console version of it and a PC is, we know that there's been a big ongoing joke about how inferior the consoles are, and they're to PC gaming, and they've different outfits have been, or different companies have been trying different tactics to make their console versions more desirable. And one of the things, like trying like the frame limiting game, so that even if you have a more powerful machine, you can't run a higher frame rate than what the consoles run. There's a lot of tactics like this. So when I hear this, the first thing that comes to mind is that it's some kind of tactic to get a PC version of a game, or just PC gaming in general, some bad press.
What you got, Brian?
Actually, I've got no opinion on this. I'm not a gamer. It doesn't really affect me. You know, I can commiserate, say, yeah, that's kind of a crappy deal. When you pay for the game, you think you pay for all the content in the game. Apparently, somebody disagreed, and now it's been stripped out. So, I mean, that is that does seem like a kind of a sorry deal.
Yeah, now, the thing is, I don't think this affects people who actually purchased a DVD or CD copy of the game, or somebody who probably pirated off of one of these torrent websites or something like that, because they still have the music content. But it is disturbing, because you think that when you go on a reputable service like Steam, you should be getting the game as the game was originally, you know, intended, or, you know, released. Edge, you have any thoughts on that?
I don't necessarily have any thoughts on the Rockstar issue, because I play Linux games, and it's not really a Linux game. But I do have a strong belief that you should pay, or you should get what you paid for. And unfortunately, I've had issues with some games where they say they're Linux compatible. I buy the game, and oh, they don't have a Linux version. And so I've had games where I bought them in February. I still don't have the game. So really, Steam needs to start holding the developers accountable for their actions. And if you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah, now the thing is, we have a lot of people here at Cup of Linux who run Windows games under Wine. And, you know, when we hear of news like this happening, you know, it just lets us know that, you know, when you never really own the software that you're paying for. You're only paying for a license for it. And that, I can understand that, okay? But the thing is, you know, when you pay, you know, you had this licensed music with the game that you paid for before the fact. You should be allowed to keep it. You know, and it stands to reason, if they can do this with Windows or Mac games, it can happen in the Linux world as well. And so personally, I think Steam should penalize game companies who do this, because they didn't even mention that this update would strip this music, that would delete this content from their hard drives. You know, and so I think, they should penalize them by maybe giving Rockstar games away for free for a week or something like that, and hit them in the wallet, and let them know, hey, pay, if you're using licensed music in this product that you're having us sell for you, you should pay your licensing bill to keep that up to date, so that we can be selling a complete product to everybody. Do you have any thoughts on that, Shaggy?
Yeah, no company should be able to do this. It's actually a sad comment on the ecosystem of everything. It goes back to even cable companies. You have to pay out way out there to get like an HBO show or something, right?
Hmm.
And what ends up happening is pirates win. They don't pay anything to get it. And it's the same thing with games. If they're going to remove content from people who legitimately acquired something, it is actually a sad comment that pirates are actually going to, people who pirate the software or acquire it from whatever means, they're the ones that are actually going to be more empowered as a user than someone who's legitimate. This hurts Steam overall if this is something that goes on more. They need to promote an ecosystem where the users who legitimately get things are treated right.
Exactly, and the thing is, sure, maybe they do have to strip the games. They could have at least, notified the consumer, look, we have to do this, but to compensate for this, we're offering you another free title in our library or something like that. Give them something. Give them something.
Even as lame as 50% off of this next game or something lame, but still something.
Yeah, exactly. They should at least that's what I believe is the right thing to do, and apparently somebody isn't doing the right thing. All right, Nikki, you got any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't really game as much. I'm just looking forward to all the eventual Linux games that are coming down the pike. I mean, I was checking earlier, and but no, I don't really have too much to say on that issue. I mean, I agree with most of you guys that, if you bought it, great, you have the license, but it was wrong of them to strip those title songs out without forewarning. I think that was wrong. You're right. They should be somewhat punished, or at least, held accountable and saying, okay, so what are you going to use to replace that with, or are you going to discount everybody, or are you going to add another content to GTA? What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? All right, well, at least we voiced our opinions on that. And while we're on the topic of gaming, I know Gaming Night at cupoflinux.com has gone on hiatus for a little while, but I'm going to rejuvenate it this Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, UTC -5. That is Saturday, November 15th. I'm going to be here in the Cup of Linux gaming room, and I am going to be playing Star Conflict again. We always had great turnouts for that. So this will be your chance to frag Spatry. I'm going to be in there with all my really cool ships, and hopefully you guys have been playing long enough to build up your fleets and everything. And we're going to have some awesome player versus player, maybe even throw in some player versus environment games. It should be a lot of fun for all of you. So that, again, that'll be Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, UTC -5 for Star Conflict. So I'll be in there, and matter of fact, I got to download the game again myself and get back into playing it. So I'll be here for that. Everything that happens at Cup of Linux happens right here at cupoflinux.com. So if you see the link in the description below, you can comment on this video. There will be a link to my blog at cupoflinux.com where I will accept and respond to your comments. I have disabled commenting on YouTube mostly because of the microstopped thing, and also because of all the activity and everything that happens to Cup of Linux, I just haven't had time to really spend on YouTube itself. responding to comments and feedback from everybody here at Cup of Linux. So thank you, Biff, for joining us. Brian, always good to have you with us. Shaggy, long time no see. Glad to have you on our show once again. Edge226, there is a, thank you for joining us. There is a link to his website, as I mentioned, on the front page of cupoflinux.com. Just click that little banner that says Get on the Edge, and you can see all the really cool things he's doing. Nikki, as always, great to have you with us, and thank you, all of you, for watching. Well, that's all we have. Peace out.
Peace out.
Peace out.